Hello, and welcome to or back to my channel. I'm Kit, your friendly feminist cat lady spinster, and today we're going to talk about Dear Sister. A few months ago, someone suggested Dear Sister's account to me, and it is a lot. I was actually working on a different video about her content, but then she had to go and post all this nonsense, and I had to change my filming schedule because this would have made the other video much too long. And really, I think this subject can stand alone. I have a lot to say, and really, this perfectly encapsulates the subtitle on my intro. There is so much potential for harm here, it's kind of scary to think she has over 30,000 followers. And for anyone who doesn't know who Dear Sister is, she is an Instagrammer who, per her bio, is writing notes on womanhood to her sisters in Christ and telling the untold history of feminism. I want to disclaim real quick that I know not all Christians believe this insanity and that not all men think they deserve sex on demand. And I want everyone to know I'm talking specifically about Sister and her fellows when I say they. Unfortunately, she's not the only one who believes this rubbish. Let's start with a post from some weeks back where, for some reason I don't really understand, Sister posted a screenshot from Rain about what enthusiastic consent can look like. I don't know if someone sent it to her or if she looked for it herself, but the page says, enthusiastic consent can look like this. Asking permission before you change the type or degree of sexual activity with phrases like, is this okay? Confirming that there is reciprocal interest before initiating any physical touch. Letting your partner know that you can stop at any time. Periodically checking in with your partner, such as asking, is this still okay? Providing positive feedback when you're comfortable with an activity. Explicitly agreeing to certain activities either by saying yes or another affirmative statement like, I'm open to trying. Using physical cues to let the other person know you're comfortable taking things to the next level. Which seems fine to me. I don't see anything objectionable in there. But Sister took it in a different way and responded with, possibly the biggest set of turn-offs I've ever seen described. This makes sense if you're sleeping with random strangers who might murder you. It makes zero sense in marriage. I have so much to say about these 3 sentences. So first, positive feedback during sex is a turn-off. Saying yes to certain activities is a turn-off. Using physical cues to indicate comfort and taking things to the next level is a turn-off. Are you sure? And also, no one is going to burst into your bedroom and demand that you and your partner give enthusiastic consent to one another before you can have sex. It's a list of what enthusiastic consent can look like. If it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply. And just because none of this sounds appealing to you or you think it doesn't make sense for your marriage, that doesn't mean it won't appeal to someone else or make sense in someone else's marriage. And finally, current or former male partners are responsible for nearly half of female homicides. This whole post is just irresponsible. I was baffled over why she would post this, but recently she posted a few more slides about sex, and I realized she thinks consent is silly because she doesn't believe in it. Recently, Sister posted some random thoughts on sex, and I'm not sure if this was a comment or a DM, but Sister found it compelling enough to respond to. Teaching our youth about sex the way God intended it to be, for a husband and a wife within marriage only, is a wonderful message. I think that was ultimately the heart of purity culture. But the message within purity culture that was often perpetuated was that sex is for men, and as women, we need to be meeting our husband's needs no matter what. That is a damaging message, and it's completely unbiblical. Sex was created by God to be enjoyed by husband and wife. Let's not forget, do not deprive one another. This verse isn't just a command for women, as Christian culture likes to use it as. It's a command for men as well. Sex is for both partners. That's how God intended it. Sister's response? So let's talk about this. 1. Yes, neither husband nor wife are to deprive one another. Absolutely. I don't know who needs to hear this, but married or no, your body belongs to you. And anyone who says otherwise has no respect for you. You are a person, not a sex toy. 2. Purity culture taught that sex is for men. See, I hear that sometimes, but I haven't seen evidence of it. Not once, despite having grown up in the scapegoated purity circles. Sister hasn't seen evidence of it, therefore it doesn't exist. That's an interesting take, since that's also how the world outside of purity culture operates. Sex is something men always want, and women have to be convinced. I'm calling BS. Also, scapegoated purity circles? Scapegoated? What's more likely, I suspect, is a basic recognition that men do overall desire sex more often than women. This is a statistical fact. And so when we're teaching not to deprive one another in marriage, it's naturally wives who need the reminder more. This isn't too hard to figure out, really, and it's rooted in biological differences, not misogyny. Her statistics are out of date. Studies have shown that men and women desire sex at roughly the same rates, and we can thank purity culture for why we think otherwise. 3. Women do need to be meeting their husband's sexual needs. That's biblical and goes both ways. See the first point. So to be clear, Sister thinks men wanting sex more than women is rooted in biology. And she also thinks women should have sex even when they don't want it, which of course isn't rooted in misogyny. She just thinks women are the ones who have to shut up and deal, and men should never have to resort to, God forbid, their own hand or a fleshlight. Men's wants are just more important than women's, but it's not misogyny. Some of the confusion that comes out of these conversations boils down to a misunderstanding of the meaning of the word deprive. Typically, when we think of the word deprive, we apparently think of sustained withholding, for long periods of time, presumably. And how long is long? Up to the wife's interpretation, apparently. Sure, I denied him sex a few times lately, but I don't deprive him. We'll have sex again next week. This is weird, because the definition of deprive is to deny the possession or use of something. Nothing about sustained denial. There's a reason why the definition says something. You can't deprive someone of your body. It's not something someone can be owed. Furthermore, this is actually not a complicated nor difficult thing to figure out. You can go to any decent Bible app and look up the meaning of the Greek word that was translated deprive. It doesn't mean to withhold for a long period of time. It's more rightly translated defraud, which means to not give someone something that rightfully belongs to them. It is more or less stealing. So you are stealing from your husband if you don't have sex when he wants. Is she aware of how bad she's making marriage sound? In case it didn't go without saying, this doesn't mean being mute and failing to communicate and then blaming it on the Bible. Let's say a wife is feeling particularly exhausted from an especially crazy day, so she communicates that to her husband and asks if he might take a rain check with a, "Could I make it up to you in the morning?" This shouldn't be a regular thing though. If he agrees, then obviously no defrauding has occurred. What if he replies, "Baby, I need you now"? Then for heaven's sake, if I may say so, love that man the way he needs to be loved in the moment, and stop acting like it's a monumental injustice and that it'll be the death of you to have sex tired. There are a multitude of reasons why someone might not want to have sex, and Sister just dismisses them as being tired. It is so strange to me how she downplays women not wanting to have sex, but she doesn't keep that same energy for men. How about the man in this scenario doesn't act like it's a monumental injustice for him to go without sex for a night? Yes, I can see how going without sex for a long period of time can strain a relationship, but insisting someone have sex when they don't want to is also going to damage a relationship. Wives who are deprived by their husbands understand this. They tell me how painful it is to be rejected when they're in the mood and he isn't. We speak of this with pity, but we speak of a man's needs callously. Of course it stings when you want to have sex and your partner doesn't, especially if you've been taught that men are always ready and willing. So if he doesn't want to, clearly something is wrong with you. But that's when you use your words and talk it out and don't just expect someone to shut up and have sex anyway. As for man's needs, these are the same people who say if you don't want to become pregnant, don't have sex, sex is a want, not a need, exert self-control, and so on. But now it's a need. Interesting. But, as I said, rain checks should be rare. If they're common, that's very controlling, and I would think it would breed resentment. I avoid those at all costs. It's happened like maybe 3 times in 9+ years for us. But having sex when you don't want to wouldn't breed resentment? Or does it not matter if a wife feels resentful? Most men are going to be gracious and not push for their needs in that moment. So a wife really shouldn't be putting it off if she can at all help it. So if a man graciously allows you to reschedule sex, you should be careful not to abuse that privilege of not having to have sex. What happens if the rain check comes and you still don't want to have sex? I have to admit, the pressure to have sex whenever my spouse wanted would be enough to put me off indefinitely. Sex is supposed to be something fun and intimate, something you do to feel pleasure and bond with your partner, not a chore you have to get through. Honestly, I don't understand weighing temporary inconvenience against being there when your husband needs you and deciding that you not wanting to be inconvenienced wins out. I don't get it. And I do personally understand the difficulties that come with health and various conditions. You're building trust and building your marriage when you receive him with love and compassion. What about his love and compassion for his wife? This is so telling. Sister clearly doesn't believe any reasons for not wanting to have sex are valid. You just don't want to fulfill your wifely duties, and the reason doesn't matter to her, because it's never going to be enough to justify, in her mind, turning down sex with one's husband. This is misogyny, sister. And you're being sexist to men as well, assuming they would rather have sex when their wife doesn't want it than go without. How does she not realize that? Or she says she personally understands the difficulties that come with health and various conditions, and also that she's only rain checked 3 times in over 9 years. Does her husband not meet her with love and compassion, and so she assumes all men are the same way? Did she just shut up and deal with it, and that's why she thinks other women should have to as well? I feel badly for her if so, but this is not a healthy way of viewing sex. And as always, do communicate your desires. Do some research and or do get checked out by someone holistic or in functional medicine if you have a low drive and no idea why. But don't deprive your man. If your libido suddenly changes, or you would like to find out why it's not where you want it, please do see a doctor. But I can't help but notice that her last line is, but don't deprive your man. Because that is the most important thing. It doesn't matter if the wife wants to have sex, let alone enjoys it. The main thing is that the man has sex when he wants it. And I would like to know, what kind of man wants sex with a woman who doesn't want it? I imagine it's very similar to the kind of man who wants a submissive wife. And honestly, she's just paying lip service to communication. If it was truly so important, there wouldn't be the option for it to be overruled. Someone either commented or sent in a DM that sister shared, and I had a few thoughts on it. I try to explain this to women in my circles all the time. My husband and I don't argue and fight. Maybe that's not everyone, but that is our relationship. The only fight we've ever had in nearly 10 years of marriage was because he didn't want to have sex and I did. I was so brokenhearted, it turned into a knockdown drag-out. Turns out it hurts pretty bad when our spouse doesn't meet our sexual needs. Meeting those needs protects our spouse's heart. So why would it be different for men? Have my husband and I ever had a knockdown drag-out argument because I didn't want to have sex? No. Why does it hurt our feelings as women when we're asked to just meet the basic needs of our husbands? He meets our emotional and physical needs every day and mine without complaint. Never, not once has he complained. If we're going to talk about culture, how about we talk less about purity culture and more about this culture of complaining and slothfulness in wives? My first thought is, what the hell is wrong with you that you had, in your own words, a knockdown, drag-out fight because your husband didn't want to have sex? If someone doesn't want to have sex, they don't want to have sex. And we really need to stop assuming that men are always ready and willing. No one owes anyone sex. Yes, it hurts when someone you want to have sex with doesn't want it, but you respect it. If they want to talk about why, okay. If they don't, okay. If you want something always ready for sex that won't bother you with emotions or thoughts, get a sex toy. This is all just... It's demeaning to women, not allowing them to have agency over their own bodies, and it's humiliating by requiring that they, as adults, have permission to not do something they don't want. And it's insulting to men, assuming they don't care if their partner wants sex or not, their own desires overrule any humanity they have, and they don't care how their wife feels so long as they get theirs. Is that really how you want to portray men, sister? Is this really how you want to portray marriage? Is this really a demonstration of how Christ loves the church? Part of me wonders if they go so hard on how wives need to meet their husbands' needs because they don't want to take a moment to think about what it says about their husbands that they hold their wives in so little regard that they're willing to forgo their wives' wants and comfort to get their own desires satisfied. It's easier to swallow if you believe all men are just biologically that way, and it's something all women have to deal with, rather than admitting to yourself that your husband is a selfish jackass. And that's it for this video. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I would like to thank my patron, and if you would like to help support the channel, my Patreon is linked below along with my socials. Have a great day, night, whenever you happen to be watching this, and fade to cats.